freezing cold here in Cheshire this morning. In fact, last night it rained really hard and then it froze, and now it's snowing a bit. It's just intermittently snowing, so there's a covering of snow on the ground here, and underneath that covering is solid ice actually, so it's lethal where I'm walking. I'm having to walk really tentatively and paying a lot of attention to what I'm doing when I'm walking, otherwise I'll be on the arse. But it's making me think about what I'm doing here actually, what the process is. Because in previous videos and in other thinking I've done, I've been talking about how experiences, sensory experiences, come out of the relationship or the contact between a sensory organ or sensory modality and the object that sense picks up. So, you know, when I look at something, I see a tree on the horizon, the seeing happens at the point of contact between my seeing, whatever that is, and the tree. Or more easily explainable to me at least, is when I touch this freezing cold fence here. When I touch that feeling I'm getting right now, which is that feeling of cold, but also the feeling of the shape and the texture of the wood. That feeling is happening at the point of contact between my hands and the fence. And the same with all the sensory modalities, that's what I was thinking at least. They've got this little it's the interface. That all this experience emerges at the interface between a kind of subject and object relations between sensory modalities and objects of sensory modalities, if you like, something like that. So how does that relate to this feeling of being on the edge of falling over all the time because the path is frozen? Well, I'm just wondering what that sense is, because I can completely feel it. I've walked off the path now, so I'm on a field, but it's still a bit slippery underfoot. And I guess what I'm paying attention to is, well, there's two things. I'm paying attention to the point of contact between my foot and the ground, and I've kind of got an internal ABS system which I'm trying to activate to stop myself slipping. So I'm kind of feeling the traction under my feet and making sure I don't put too much traction. Don't pull away from the ground too hard. I don't hit the ground at too steep an angle, at too high a speed. Otherwise the coefficient of friction, which is much reduced because of the ice, will not be enough to keep that foot in place. So I'm paying attention partly to that, and that's about contact. But this other thing I've got going on is about balance, I think, and to a less extent about centrifugal force, because I am turning around quite a bit. The balance thing is I can really feel it, particularly on a day like this when I'm being careful and walking deliberately. I can really feel this this sense that I have a centre of gravity, and there's a line of gravity connecting my weight down through my feet to the ground. And of course, what I'm doing, why I'm paying attention to that, is I have to keep that line dropping through my feet, because if it's at too much of an angle, I'll just be over. So I can really detect that very strongly. But what is that? What am I feeling when I feel that? I don't feel that point of gravity in my feet. I feel the weight in my feet, but I don't feel the balance in my feet. I feel the balance in my body. But what's that a contact point with? You know, if seeing is a kind of contact point between my sensory organs and the external world, and my sense of coldness on my hands when I touch a fence post is the contact point between my fingers and the wood. What's the contact? What am I contacting when I've got this thing of balance going on? And I can only think it's the entirety of the Earth operating as a single mass, with the centre of that mass being the centre of the Earth. And I presume that's what's happening here. So when I'm doing this slight wavering I'm doing right now, and when I'm doing this very deliberate stepping forward, what I'm essentially doing, I think, there is feeling the point of contact where the mass of my body meets the mass of the Earth, and the kind of somatic experience that gives me is this feeling of balance, which is obviously heightened because I'm having to put special attention to it right now. The other thing about centrifugal force, now where this is even more weird actually thinking about it, because I made a video about this some time ago, but the sound quality was rubbish. But this centrifugal force, this feeling I'm doing like when I turn around like this, and I'm having to be again very careful to keep my centre line in place. So I'm the kind of heightened awareness of that axis around which that centrifuge is moving. If I understand it correctly, centrifugal force is produced, oh god, I'm not really sure of the facts here. It comes out of Newton. There's a very famous experiment called Newton's bucket which demonstrates this, but I haven't got time to describe right now. But centrifugal force is a function of the relationship between the body that's in motion, my body when it's spinning like this, and somehow, and don't ask me to explain how, and somehow the entirety of the mass of the rest of the universe. I think that's right. Pretty gobsmacking really. So the point of contact that I'm making there, the sensory organs that I have, which is some kind of sensory organs to do with, I don't know, proprioception or something going on in my ears, that kind of stuff. The point of contact is between my centre of gravity, on the centre line of my gravity, I guess, the axis around which I'm turning, and the entirety of the rest of the universe. Well, doesn't sound right, does it? I think it's bullshit now.